So, how many of us has made an effort here to have a small conversation with someone unknown next to you? Okay, not much. So many of us has this thing called we think networking, and we think that building a long-term relationship to be very challenging. So I was the same. I felt building relationship, and even though I was a young entrepreneur, I felt networking was somehow awkward to me. So I wanted to figure out how one person so easily networked with the other person. So many of us struggled to do the same thing. So to figure out, being a young entrepreneur, I usually went to a lot of networking events. So when I go to a network event, basically from the gate itself, I get bombarded with tons of business cards. Until the end of the event, I feel like almost I forgot my name. So somehow I get away from these networking events, and the very next I open my inbox, and to my dismay, there are even more emails that are from various companies. So I gathered some enthusiasm to even at least open the first mail that I got. And to a person who just got married, the first email read from a divorce specialized advocacy company. And I was like, dude, I just got married, yeah. And at the end of the day, I just think that how much this networking event was successful, or is all these networking events leading me towards area that I was not even interested in. So pondering upon this, I went to I wanted to understand how networking worked, and I basically want to walk you through 4 stages of networking that I have managed to devise. So the first stage of networking is how we bridge a mental gap. So when I was a small kid, when two person were talking to each other, I always felt this gap between people, even though they were talking with each other, even though they were bonding with each other, I felt somehow something was missing there. And I was too young back then to understand and comprehend what was that exact thing that was missing. So I grew up, and I knew that somehow I need to address this. And by birth, I'm a half Buddhist and a half Hindu. My mom was a Buddhist, and my dad is a Hindu. So I came to realize there is something called 4 states of conscious mind that is actually abodes of Buddhism. So 4 states of conscious mind is actually what Buddhist monks use to network with any individual or any living creature all around the world. So the first stage being the state of upekkha. So it's a state of equanimity a person can realize having that state of mind. That is whenever we enter a hall full of unknown people like this, or whenever we talk with an unknown person, we try to awkwardly talk with that person because we really don't know that person. So this state of mind actually helps us to reflect back on the situation we are in, or reflect back on the person we are talking to, and allows us to respond rather than react in a more sensible manner. So this state of mind is actually an antidote to reactivity. So the second state of mind, of consciousness we have, is metta. So this is being in a state of loving kindness and benevolence. So in this state of mind, we usually wish good to everyone around us. So you walk in an unknown path, or you walk in an unknown hall full of unknown people, and you just wish them good. And you somehow get connected with that person. So this is an antidote to anger. And the third state of mind we can have to become an effective networker is karuna. So this state of mind is an antidote to cruelty. We are often cruel towards people who are underprivileged or less privileged than us, or who is weaker than us. So this is the antidote to cruelty. So having this state of mind will actually help you to wish good towards people who is more weaker than you and wish them good. So the first state of mind is having compassion, having empathetic joy towards a person who is more successful to you. So if you walk and bump into a person who is more successful to you, you just wish them good, and you just wish them more success, and you somehow get connected to them, rather than randomly bumping into people and then finding out that mental gap and finding out the difference between a lot of people that we have. So this is the fourth state of mind, what allows you to connect with the other person very easily. So after you are somehow connected with the other person, the second stage of networking is how we approach the whole networking itself. So with what framework do we approach networking? So usually we go to a networking event, and what is the very first thing that we do? The very first thing that we do is we hand over a business card to an unknown person in an intent to sell something. So back then, when I was a school-going child, I had this very transactional way of networking. So I always network in an intent to get something out of that person. So why can't, it's just a suggestion of mine, why can't we tweak a framework with which we approach networking? And why can't we network in a way and see networking as an opportunity to give something to someone? So when we do that, the very awkward, strange feeling that we have to extract something from someone just disappears, and you come out to become more friendly person. You come out to become more comfortable to approach that person. So an unknown person, you just bump into them, and then you just wish them well, no matter who they are. And you're suddenly a bit connected to them. Then, in the second stage, you approach that person in an intent to give something. And finally, after this, we approach the third stage, where we actually have the interaction. So the third stage is when we have to build that comfort and trust. So somehow we have passed these stages, and we are building this comfort. We are comfortable with that person, and we are building this comfort and trust with that person. And this comes from a repetitive meeting, because you approach that person in an intent to give something. The other person received it in a good way, so you met that person a few more times, and then you got comfortable. You developed a sense of trust. So the third stage of networking reminds me of an incident that happened way back. I interned in Thailand for about a year, and I had a very good friend out there, and her name was Valeria Mecca. So back then when I was working, we always used to meet up after work. And what I figured out was we started building up comfort, meeting each other. And one fine day, I was not well, so I didn't go to work. So she paid me a visit after work. And she just asked me, why didn't you come to work? What happened? And slowly I just asked, what happened to your day? How was it? So she slowly explained how her day went like. And I slowly opened up towards what happened towards me. And our conversation grew to such an extent that we were talking suddenly about vowel movements. So if we share that comfort level of where we are comfortable enough to talk about our shit and their shit, and it actually makes sense at the end of the day, then you know that you have achieved that trust level with that person. So, jokes apart, there is this very concept I used in my first venture, that is the Bittersweet Confectionery. So when I started my Bittersweet Confectionery, it was a small homegrown company where I used to specialize making delicious chocolates. So slowly it grew in demand, and I knew that I need to employ the employers who can make chocolates to fulfill the demand. So slowly I was searching how to find the employees. And I did such a very quick, simple thing. I approached my maid who used to come to my house every 3 to 4 hours. And I just asked her about, are you willing to work for me? And she said, well, I work for 5 different houses per day, and I have a very hard time saving up for a child, for an only child that I have to educate. So I just said that I'll give you a full-time job, which will pay you enough to send your child to a good school. So come and work with me. So I started like that, and we started to generate a pool of underprivileged women who were able to produce good quality chocolates. And with this one simple thing, that is, whenever we give them, whenever the time comes to give them a monthly salary, so we just held back 15% of whatever they earned and added up 15% from our company, and then that goes to their provident fund. So whatever money that they have generated is getting saved for a future purpose or for a purpose that they need to spend on. So actually, this comes to a stage, second stage, that is the stage of giving. So I approached my maid in a way to give something to her. And in that way, I just felt much more connected to my employees. And in that way, the sense of giving was so overwhelming, and the sense of giving was so satisfactory than any achievements that you have in your life. So moving on to the third stage from that, we also have specialized on corporate gifts these days, and we work closely with our business clients for about a month before transacting. We come up with a customized product which would reflect their branding. So moving through the structure itself, we felt that we went through stage 1, where we wished the other person good, the other company good. We went through the stage 2, where we addressed about how we can approach the company to approach a company to quench a need of theirs rather than selling whatever that we have. And then we worked closely to know their branding, worked closely to know how they want the product to be. And we already, before transaction itself, we already reached to a stage of comfort and trust. So we could easily transact with them. With this, what I understood was the speed of the rate with which we did the business after transaction doubled like anything. And it was due to the trust we have. It was easy to get it done over a phone call rather than an unknown person trying to approach a company, and they should go through a long verification process, which is very tedious. So after the third stage, that is building a trust and comfort with the other person, the fourth stage of networking is the consequence of all these three stages. That is having a long-term relationship with that person or with that entity. So it's a consequence of all these three stages. And in this particular stage, whatever that you have given out is actually getting materialized and you're getting back. So a simple law of reciprocity, that is, if you give something out to some person, that person will come back to give you something. So let's say I give something to person A, B, C, D, and E. Then after a month, only B and D came back to give something to me. So how this framework works is we have to make our scope so big. We actually have given more than received, right? So how this framework works is you have to expand your scope of giving so much that even if few return to you, it's enough to suffice your need of anything that you want in your life. Even if B, D, F, L, M, Q, R, Z comes back to you, then it's enough to suffice your need of having a profitable company, suffices your need of having a good living out of it. So having your social, emotional, and intellectual need being fulfilled because of all these. And then going back, so we have already covered these 4 stages of networking. So the first 2 stages happen in your head. So the first stage is bridging that psychological gap that comes because of different people have. And the second stage is by approaching networking as a framework of giving. So if an unknown person comes to you, you wish them good, no matter what. And then you approach that person in an intent to give something. And after that, an interaction happens, and if you are in a positive vibe of interacting more, then you enter the 4th stage, that is building network and building trust and comfort level with that person. And the 4th stage eventually leads to a long-term relationship. So I have tried and tested these stages in a lot of various phases of my life, and it has worked miraculously. In the first stage, that was bridging the psychological gap, I would like to share a story that is, I grew up in a strict joint family where my elder brother was the superstar of the family. So life wasn't easy for me since the very beginning. It wasn't always about the extra chocolates or extra toys he used to get showered with. For me, it was always about earning that proud look in my grandparents' eyes that shriveled through whenever my elder brother walked in. Perfecting household chores, doing good in studies, doing good in extracurricular activities, no matter what I did. I was never good enough for them. Eventually, I developed this sense of jealousy and envy towards my elder brother. And we didn't bond well back then. So had I known this 5 stages consciousness, I would have just wished my brother well, and we would have bonded in a beautiful way. So, in so many ways, in so many phases of my life, I have used all these stages of networking, and it has worked perfectly. So, it's worth trying because I have built 2 companies because I have gone through each stages with both of my companies. And today, my company, Bittersweet Company, my confectionery, has at least 12 big corporate clients who can easily make us employ about 10 employees, full-time employees, who can fund their children in a good school. So I have made a living out of following these simple steps. So networking is not a rocket science that's very hard. It just takes a few simple steps to be humanized and applied in a correct way. So it's worth trying, guys. Happy networking. Thank you.